Erratic power supply, depreciation of the cedi, high taxes and government charges are pushing businesses to the brink of collapse. The Association of Ghana Industry, AGI, is not happy.
We cannot actually appreciate, because we believe that this is some policy that has been repeated over and over and over again and has not been working. You know, it's not working within our environment. It could work in some other country, but it's not working here. All it does is to increase cost of borrowing and therefore cost of products and cost of services. Again, it leads us back to not being competitive. This is a time when we are talking about promoting made in Ghana goods and services. How do we promote something that is even more expensive than other products that can be found on the market? So it's not beneficial to the business climate at all.
Now, according to an IEA business confidence survey, 34% of businesses in Ghana laid off workers in the last 6 months due to these challenges. So what needs to be done to relieve businesses of these pressures? Is Ghana's macroeconomic environment conducive enough to aid business growth? And what are the prospects for these businesses to grow in these tough times? We're talking business entirely tonight, and this is today's big story. The Business Confidence Survey by the Institute of Economic Affairs was conducted in the Greater Accra, Western and Ashanti regions and revealed major obstacles to doing business in Ghana. Power supply, cedi depreciation, taxes and government charges topped the list of challenges businesses said they faced, although many of them expressed optimism for good times ahead in the next 6 months. Let's get a fairer understanding of what went into this survey.
I must say that, let me say this, fiscal dominance, as I hear people saying, is the main, in terms of the sectors. Also, we have said that we covered agriculture, industry and services. 100, for instance, maybe that's not enough. In terms of coverage across regions, you know, we concentrated on Greater Accra, East, Western, and Ashanti. Maybe we may need to extend it. I'll be surprised if there are very serious, differences between the results of our survey and others. Although that will certainly surprise. It should surprise all of us, not only us. I mean, if the AGI sees that we're coming out with results different from what their survey is coming out with, of course, then we should begin to ask questions whether, how reliable, these results are.
Right, Dr. John Kwachi there is a senior economist with the IEA. Let's now do some analysis on the survey and some of the recommendations that came out. Dr. John Gachi is joining us now on the telephone. Dr. Gachi is an economist and a senior lecturer of the University of Ghana. We're hoping to get him on the line and we'll continue with the discussion. But let's continue whilst we wait to get Dr. John Gachi on the line. Let's hear Dr. John Kwachi again from the IEA talking about the need for fiscal discipline in helping resolve some of these challenges businesses face and also to help improve the business environment for growth.
I must say that, let me say this, fiscal dominance, as I hear people saying, is the main obstacle to an effective monetary policy, whatever framework it is. Whether it's a monetary targeting framework, an IT framework, or whatever, the conditions, one of the basic conditions for its effectiveness is to have fiscal discipline in place. We don't have it in this country. And therefore, I have worked on this committee. I've been a member for years. And our frustration always, nobody is happy. The last time we raised the interest rate, we were not all happy to raise interest rates at this time. But what do you do in a situation where your cedi is under attack, and you have very limited instruments to deal with it? Of course, the ultimate solution is to increase our export earnings, transform this economy. But Bank of Ghana cannot wait for that. And the only tool available to the Bank of Ghana is the interest rate, because people are moving into CDs and driving up the exchange rate because we think that maybe the alternatives, the CD-denominated assets, are not that attractive. So from Bank of Ghana's point of view, and I'm saying that we have very limited instruments to do that, you raise the interest rate to make the CD-denominated assets, more attractive, such that you can maybe shift people away from holding foreign currency to holding interest. You may say that this is very parochial and narrow, and it doesn't address the interests of businesses. I can see that. But Bank of Ghana alone cannot solve all the problems of this country. In fact, the energy crisis, for instance, is not Bank of Ghana's business. I must tell you honestly. The high cost of living, yes, but we have to get fiscal discipline in place. And we believe that the IMF program is a start, although we didn't need to go to the IMF. But as my colleague said, it looks like in this country, when we are on our own, we can't discipline ourselves until we go to the Bretton Woods institutions that impose fiscal discipline on us. And then when we leave them, we go back to our old bad ways. So please take it from here that it is lack of fiscal discipline which is driving Bank of Ghana to do the things that we do.
Right, so let's quickly get onto the telephones line now. I have Dr. John Gachi on the other line. Dr. Gachi, good evening and thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Gachi, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Right, if you could raise your voice a little, I can't hear you very well. And also we have on the other line George Ofori, who is president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. Let me start with you, Mr. George Ofori. Can you tell me, are businesses collapsing?
Yeah, thank you very much and good evening to our listeners. Yes, businesses are actually collapsing at a very faster rate.
I see. And so that means that the IEA survey, which is indicating that most businesses are actually have their performance have worsened in the last 6 months, is very true. Now, tell me what some of the challenges leading to this collapse is for your members.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for some time now, all of us could attest to the fact that the fundamentals in terms of the indicators are not working the way it was before. And, in the business environment, you are being guided by the indicators. And so as soon as the indicators rises up, then businesses become to crumble.
So when you say, Mr. Ofori, when you say indicators, what exactly do you mean? Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about interest rates? Are you talking about depreciation?
Yes.
What exactly do you mean by indicators?
Yes. The indicators I did mention have to do with the depreciation of the CD, the interest rate, and be reminded that even last 2 weeks there was a program organized by the Ministry of Trade and IEA for the reduction of interest rates. As soon as the program ended, BOG had to come out, as Bank of Ghana had to come out and add 1% to the already 21% that they have, making it 22%. And so the base rate have been raised from 21% to 22% as we speak now, making the whole exercise needless. And when we're talking about inflation, you're talking about the depreciation, interest rate, and the doom shock. I mean, if all these things come together, it is very, very difficult for one to be able to stand up against some of these, indicators. So if the fundamentals are not right, we will still be having such problems. We will still, and even couple of the latest development where NP will have to come and tell Ghanaians that fuel prices have been increased by 9%.
Mr. Ofori, that will be a different discussion for another day. But let me put this straight to you. The IEA says that about 34% of companies they interviewed have laid off workers in the past 6 months. What are the numbers like? I mean, I know that the IEA is talking about percentage, but what are the numbers for your people? Are you able to tell us that maybe 800 people have been laid off in the last 6 months or 60 people in the last 6 months? What figures can you put to these percentages?
Well, you see, already we have had some sort of, people who have been laid out to about, initially we had about 12,000, as was mentioned in the papers.
Wow.
And that could be from the informal sector, the formal sector of the economy. But when you come to the informal sectors of the economy, you can't imagine maybe how many people have been laid off as a result of smoking.
Wow, very scary picture you're painting there. So, Mr. Ofori, we'll have you hold. Dr. John Gachi is on the other telephone line. We'll engage him also. Dr. Gachi, good evening and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
So, everyone is curious. Are the survey findings compelling enough for us to conclude that things are that gloomy for businesses?
Well, I think nobody can argue against the fact that the energy crisis is having a serious effect on businesses and that some people have been laid off. But the difficulty about the survey is that it's focusing on the private sector.
That's right.
But we are not aware the aspect of the private sector that they focus their activities on, whether they capture manufacturing industry across board, whether they focus their study on small-scale businesses alone. So that is difficult. But we cannot run away from the fact that the energy crisis has significant effect on retention of workers, has significant effect on the ability of those people who manage businesses to be able to focus and do their work.
Let me give you some statistics. Dr. Gachi, let me give you some of the statistics that have been captured in this survey report. I'm not sure whether you are privy to them, so it's fair for me to read them out so that you can get a fair understanding of what figures they're putting. Now, the main results of the Business Confidence Survey, I will quote some of it. 53% of the non-financial sector firms interviewed indicated that their performance had deteriorated over the last 6 months compared with the previous 6 months. However, businesses were optimistic about their performance in the following 6 months. So really what they're saying is that the 53% of those they interviewed say that they're feeling the pinch, that their performance had gone down, yet they're hopeful that the next 6 months will be good. What I want to ask you from there is that, does it really, is it based on credible information, or I don't know whether to say policies or structures, that these businesses will hope that the next 6 months will be good? Do you see it that way too yourself from where you stand?
Well, that depends on whether they do understand the measures that have been put in place so far. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening, Dr. Gachi.
Yeah, that depends on whether they understand the measures that have been put in place so far, whether the feedback that have been given as to the short-term measures put in place, the medium-term measures put in place to deal with the matter. If it is true that they do understand and believe in those measures, then that is good. But if they are just speaking for speaking's sake, then that is very dangerous. But I want to believe that they have confidence in the measures that have been put in place. And they do hope that, just as all of us are hoping, that beginning of the third quarter will see significant improvement in the energy situation for a lot of productive activity to take. And that also should pose a challenge to the managers of the power sector, that if businesses are reposing confidence in your ability to improve the situation with time, then you must double up your effort to ensure that this confidence is not undermined.
Right now, the IEA also recommends, as part of the number of recommendations that were captured in the survey, the IEA recommends that something needs to be done urgently to relieve businesses of these pressures. Is this a realistic recommendation, and what really can be done in this direction?
Well, I think it's a good recommendation, but it is not realistic in the times in which we are. What is realistic? A limited number of solar panels that have been promised will be distributed to some small businesses across the country. Look at the finances of the country. I doubt if the country will be in position to provide all those support that have been recommended in the survey. So they are good recommendations. For example, if you take the macroeconomic aspect, it will take time for the macroeconomic stability to establish. Perhaps we will see some signs getting to the third quarter of this year. But in order to have a hold on macroeconomic stability, that will take some time. And if we have a clear macro stability in the country, that itself would drive some of the things that they are talking about. If macro stability results in reduction in interest rate, reduction in inflation, and then stability in exchange rate, that itself will be a good incentive for business activities in the country.
So, Dr. Gachi, something like a tax holidays and other tax incentives, you think that the country's economic status now cannot sustain these?
Well, those are laudable ideas, but as I said, they are not things that can practically be implemented. It is easy to design those recommendations, but I doubt if those things can be implemented, because you are even talking at a time that you need to mobilize more tax revenue to solve some of your problems, and at the same time, there is a recommendation that you should cut some taxes for people so that they can. What people need is resolution to the energy problem. If that is done, because if we go by the study, they are talking about 90% saying that energy crisis is the major challenge they are facing.
That's right.
So let us focus on the major challenge. And if we bring those external factors, they are good, but I doubt they cannot be implemented.
Right. Dr. Gachi, we'll have you hold. I'll return to you so we talk about a stable macroeconomic environment. What we need to do is one of the recommendations captured in the IEA report. But let's get to the level of the traders. Guta president is still on the line. So let me ask you, Ms. Ofori, that IEA is recommending that government does something to relieve businesses. Already the survey indicates that cost of credit, high taxes are a major problem for you. So as a solution, what really would you have government do to take off some of the pressures affecting your members?
Thank you very much. I think the discussions have actually said it all about the stability of the macroeconomic indicators, as was rightly said by Dr. Gachi. And when we are talking about recommendations, already we've complained seriously about access to credit, which is not forthcoming. And even if you are able to have the accessibility of the credit, you are there also to, you also have to battle with the interest rate and other related issues. And so for us, manufacturing concerns, as I will keep on always saying, we have a chain of distribution. The manufacturers are there, the warehousing facilities, the wholesaling facilities, before the retailing aspect also comes in. So what we can recommend is that government should come out with a stimulus package to this manufacturing fair, so that they could be able to.
So when you say stimulus packages, let's get it clear what Guta really wants. Stimulus, is it that you want tax holidays? Is it that you want easy access to credit? Perhaps maybe government should put in place schemes to make it possible for your members to access low-cost credit, despite the fact that interest rates are going high, the policy rate has shot up and all of that. So when you say stimulus, really, what are you looking at?
That is exactly what I'm trying to refer to, because when we talk about stimulus packages, that is where maybe you can access credit at a lower rate and be able to access credit without any difficulty, for you to be able to also, try to make ends meet as it is all the time. But the way it's very difficult. It's just like I told you, look at the interest rate situation. Just our last 2 weeks after organizing a program for the reduction of interest rates, Bank of Ghana saw the need to come and increase it again. So if there are always increment in terms of taxes, brother, how can the private sector, how can some of us be able to work and even break even?
I can understand.
That is the real issue. There's
a real issues. Dr. Gachi, you're there. Let me toss some of these issues back to Dr. John Gachi, who is still on the line. Dr. Gachi, the Guta president, Ms. Ofori, raises an important question. Stimulus packages. Now, in view of the fact that Ghana has gone to the IMF and has agreed on a program, do you feel that we can still continue in this direction, perhaps continue with subsidies, offer stimulus packages, maybe easy access to credit, maybe some kinds of incentives to make small businesses thrive without this strangulation with with loans and other credit facilities? Do you think this is possible?
Well, in our sector, it would have been nice to have some kind of stimulus package for targeted businesses.
Targeted business. So your key emphasis is targeted businesses.
Yeah, targeted businesses.
And what would these targeted businesses be?
But we must just suppose that with the conditions prevailing in the country and the country's ability to raise such huge money to engage in a stimulus activity. And that, for me, is very, very difficult to think that will happen. So it's a good demand, but demand must meet supply. The supply to that particular demand, for me, I cannot see it. That is why I have the difficulty. We have not structured our economy to cater for some of these things. And you cannot, in an ad hoc manner, provide these solutions, especially at this time.
Very interesting. Doc, let me go back to earlier before I left our conversation. I wanted us to talk about the need to ensure a stable macroeconomic environment within which businesses can grow. Do you see enough systems in place to ensure that this is possible? I mean, because we're all surrounded by a lot of things. You've already mentioned that the energy crisis is the major challenge facing businesses, but also the fact that if we don't have a stable macroeconomic environment, nothing will work really.
Well, I think we all need to accept the fact that the economy has been diagnosed. Two major problems, the macroeconomic instability and the energy crisis, are the key challenges that the country is going through. And if you look at the effort of the managers of the economy, especially from the beginning of this year, you will see that much more effort has been exerted in dealing with the energy problem. And we are all expecting that getting to the third quarter, things will improve significantly. That is the reason why I believe they are brought in the IMF to come and help stabilize the macroeconomic front. Of course, initially there will be some difficulties, there will be challenges, there will be burning of fingers. But with time, all these things will go away. We have experienced this before. When the IMF came on board to support us in ensuring macroeconomic stability, we went through a lot of difficulties. But with time, they all died down, and we began to enjoy the stability of the economy until we get to this point again. So I believe with time, these things will go away, and the economy will come back to its footing.
I see. Now, the IEA, finally, Dr. Gachi, before I let you go, the IEA, among the recommendations, is also saying that serious interventions need to be put in place to address unemployment. I mean, we're in a situation where many companies are laying off workers. 34% of those companies that IEA surveyed have laid off workers in the past 6 months, and these run into thousands. But under these circumstances, against the challenge of the energy crisis and fiscal indiscipline, and perhaps the macroeconomic indicators do not look good, can government still, amidst all of these challenges, create jobs?
Well, that is why I say some of these recommendations are not realistic, given the times in which we are. If the IEA is recommending that those are the things that should bother the minds of the managers of the economy for the medium to long term, I will agree. But that cannot be done within this time as a recommendation. You cannot grow the economy at the back of instability in the macroeconomic front. You cannot generate enough jobs, especially sustainable jobs, during this time when we have this twin problem of energy crisis and macroeconomic stability. But those recommendations should be the driving force behind anything that the managers of the economy do for the medium to long term of the economy.
Dr. Gachi, we're grateful for your time on today's Big Story. Let me wrap up with George Ofori, who is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. So, Mr. Ofori, moving on, what are your members going to do? Maybe I should say, what is the association going to do under the circumstances we're all faced with? Poor energy supply, high cost of credit, high taxes and all. What are you doing?
Well, we are managing. What can you do?
Managing
our businesses at a time of such situations becomes very, very difficult. We want to be able to, meet under, to do business under some of these conditions. So we're still managing and see how best.
Right, Mr. George Ofori, we are grateful for your time on today's Big Story. We all managing, actually, we become very good managers in these trying times. But we're hopeful, I am hopeful at least, that the next 6 months will bring some dividend. We can see some power coming in. We get supply of energy and we can do a lot. My name is Stephen Enti and we'll be right back with Joy News Interactive, where we get to hear you say your mind. Stay with us.